This is all wrong. I shouldn't be up here. I should be back in school on the other side of the ocean. Yet you all come to us young people for hope. How dare you!
Boring. Boring. Boring.
Okay, you got it. Don't tell us what we're gonna feel. We're trying to solve a problem. Don't tell us what we're going to feel.
I'm not telling you.
Because you're in no position to dictate that.
That's exactly what you're doing.
You're in no position to dictate what we're going to feel.
I call again for an immediate ceasefire in Gaza, the return of the sausages, the hostages.
Greetings, one and all. Lembit Öpik here on Lembit Öpik Live on Unprecedented TV, the home of free speech all over the world. Do please subscribe and like if you think that we're doing a good job. You'll find us at Unprecedented TV on YouTube. Put my name in as well, Lembit, Lembit, if you want to find us easily and quickly. You can also follow me on at Lembit Öpik, and please do take a look at our archive, all available on the YouTube site. We have literally hundreds of shows for you to have a look at, and they aren't past their sell-by date. They cover all kinds of interesting and I believe important subjects. It's one of those important subjects that I want to appeal to you directly to consider or potentially reconsider, depending where you stand on the issue. It's a question of domestic abuse. Once again, this is making the headlines. The most recent story, which has been going out today, is that teachers to be trained to spot early signs of misogyny in boys. And the BBC, the British Broadcasting Corporation, has been going big on this, unquestioningly reporting that men and boys have to be challenged because they could become abusers of women and girls. There are lots of examples of headlines of this nature. The media seem to almost unquestioningly assume that teachers have to challenge males in order to stop abuse. Here's another one. This is from The Guardian. Teachers will be given extra training to tackle misogyny in schools. Keir Starmer announcing new strategy, says toxic ideas are taking hold early and going unchallenged. You can look at pretty much any outlet and you'll get this message. No, no, no. This, in my view, is an appalling and sexist misunderstanding about the nature of domestic abuse and violence. This makes the assumption that men and boys do abuse to women and girls. Nothing could be further from the truth. It's sexist, it's horrible, and it isolates thousands upon thousands of male victims of abuse. Anybody who understands abuse properly, including Marilyn Hawes, who we're privileged to have regularly on Unprecedented TV, will tell you this is not about gender. This is about mindset. Abusers can be male, they can be female, they might identify in a different way. And abused are not inevitably female. A large proportion, and we can debate that proportion, are male victims. One of the horrendous, horrible, and sexist assumptions that I see in the mainstream media almost every week, and certainly I observe in the Labour government, is this assumption that we have to tackle misogyny, that some kind of attitude of prejudice against women and girls is at the heart of abuse. That's ridiculous and dangerous nonsense. Sure, some of it is to do with that. But fundamentally, abuse is a mindset problem. And it doesn't matter if you're male or female. If you are experiencing that mindset, you're likely to be an abuser. So also, it's an appalling misunderstanding to assume that the victims are always weak females. This is not about weakness. Men can be strong, so can women. And here's one of the statistics. A man is severely assaulted by his wife or girlfriend every 14.6 seconds. Now, there's been a debate about what proportion of abuse victims are actually male, but it doesn't matter. A significant proportion, which I would put between a third and a quarter, are male victims. It could be higher than that. I can't be sure. But there's no doubt that this is one of the controversial claims. Nearly half of male victims, 49%, fail to tell anyone they're a victim of domestic abuse. Now, that makes it difficult to know what the figures are, because there's no question that shame is involved in reporting abuse if you're male. The implication is that if you're a man, you should be able to stand up for yourself. Now, think about that. Think about what that's implying. Oh, you're a man, you're strong enough to stand up against the woman who's abusing you. What's that implying? What's that suggesting that a man who's being abused should do? Fight back? Hit the abuser? Oh, come on. This is exactly the problem that we've got. So you can argue about what proportion of men don't want to talk about it. You can talk about all kinds of mitigation, or a man can be strong enough. All of that shows that we are dealing with ignoramuses in politics who want to simplify abuse as male against female. When I was a member of parliament, I dealt with a lot of male victims of abuse. Word got round that I took them seriously. And male abusers, therefore male abuse victims, came to my office knowing that they would not be laughed at or dismissed. And it was heartrending. Their stories are just as bad as female victims of abuse, of whom, once again, there were many who came to my surgery. My impression is this is an endemic, pandemic, if you like, in our country and perhaps all over the world. And the story was always the same. The victim would often understand why the abuser was doing what they were doing. But it was almost never to do with sexual orientation, gender identity, or strength. The abuse victims were often far stronger than the people who were either psychologically or physically abusing them. I came to the view that oftentimes, perhaps most of the time, the victim was stronger psychologically than the perpetrator. And they would seek to justify it. They would say, well, I am a difficult person to live with. Or they'd say, well, yes, I didn't do the garden right. Or, well, maybe I'm not a good parent. And they would seek to an extent to excuse the actions of the perpetrator. What I didn't observe was some systemic trait, which meant that women and girls were the victims and men and boys were the perpetrators. So back to this idea that the teachers now have to spot misogyny. They have to argue that somehow it's all about men who can't handle themselves and who are angry and more than anything, they're the ones who are ruining our society. Well, as long as we have that kind of attitude in this country, then we will not deal with the core issue in abuse. The core issue is that the abuser is messed up. The abuser has a problem. The abuser is living out some kind of a trauma which they've not come to terms with. It doesn't matter if you're a male or female abuser. That, I believe, is consistently the case. Back to Marilyn Hawes, the Chief Executive Officer of Freedom from Abuse. She will describe in great detail her own experience of abuse, what she discovered in her own family. And she will also confirm that she can identify very quickly abusers of certain categories. And she also insists this is not a male to female trait. So where does this leave us? Well, it leaves us with a huge proportion of men who are abused feeling unable to talk about it. Mankind is a superb initiative, and they deal with domestic abuse, supporting male victims, and they provide training and everything else. They're doing exactly what this government should be doing. They're dealing with abuse in its core form. They're dealing with the causes of abuse. They're awake to the fact that abuse is a mindset, not a gender. And if you have been a victim of abuse, then I very much recommend that you get in touch with them. They're a superb charity. There are others who talk about this as well. Respect Men's Advice Line, they're superb. There's the number, 0808 80 10 327. That's 0808 80 10 327. Domestic abuse affects men too. And a superb charity. Massive respect for what they do. in a non-patronizing, insightful and mature way. They empower men who have been told as recently as today on the BBC to assume that misogyny is at the heart of abuse, all abuse. They're told that that's not the case. So there are enlightened organizations, but they're not being embraced by the current government's policy. And I have to say other governments have been victim of this as well. They've been guilty of this as well. So my advice to you, if you have been abused, is to recognize that you're not alone. Being a man doesn't mean putting up with things which women are expected to report. Being a man doesn't mean hitting back, which is the implication when people dismiss the prospect that men can be victims of abuse. Being a human means standing up for your human rights. Men's Advice Line and Mankind Initiative are both places where you can get help if you have been abused. Now, given the extent of coverage today of this subject, I'm hoping I might be able to have a short conversation with Marilyn Hawes on this issue. If not today, certainly in the next couple of days. And I'm launching an initiative here, and I invite you, if you've been a victim of abuse, male or female, to participate, to put this right. I'm hoping that over time, we at Unprecedented TV can handle the causes of abuse in a mature, reflective, and insightful fashion. I'm hoping that we can bring this government and all parties to task on their persistent assumption that this is a sexist problem. It is not. I don't know how far we can get and how fast we get there, but there is an imperative because people kill themselves, male and female, as a result of being victims of abuse. It's heartbreaking to see such a superficial treatment by a government which does very little right and a great deal wrong. What's worse still is that the idea we have to now force teachers to get training to tackle misogyny in schools on the assumption that that will solve abuse implies to me that we're all set to hard bake the assumption that abuse is only against women and girls. This is just another example of the deterioration of, I think, respect for humanity in our country, where we seek to divide and conquer men and boys because they're the perpetrators of abuse solely towards women and girls. And there's that quote again by Keir Starmer: toxic ideas are taking hold early and going unchallenged. Yes. And one of those toxic ideas comes from your own government, Starmer, whenever you suggest that we need to segregate abuse into two genders, the victims and the perpetrators. What can you do about it? Well, if you've not thought about it much, maybe this hasn't affected you, and I can't realistically expect you to campaign on something that perhaps hasn't touched you. But I'm willing to bet that every one of you, every viewer has observed something which implies they know someone who's been abused, male or female. I'd ask you to do two things. First of all, consider what I've said and let me know what you think. Am I right, in your view, to try to remove the gender stereotype that abusers are male and abused are female? If I'm not right, then I want to know how I can do this better. I want to hear your consideration of the issue. The second thing I invite you to do, if you have been abused, is to consider the causes of that abuse. And perhaps you've had the courage and the support to deal with it. But if you haven't taken a step to protect yourself, now's the time to do it. If you're female, then there are many avenues for you to approach. And you'll see, if you're watching this live, all over the media now, ways that you can potentially get help. If you're male, then think about Mankind and get in touch with their Mankind Initiative, or phone the Men's Advice Line. Superb. understanding, informed, and supportive. What I will not tolerate is the further reduction and simplification of this issue into a male against female thing. It's not. Why am I so angry about it? Well, because I've seen it. Because I've seen men's lives wrecked by this, and women's too. One of my dear friends at college had a boyfriend so violent, I thought he was going to kill her. And she had broken bones. She was always making excuses. But I've seen this with men too. So I can't sit idly by and just dismiss this as another bad decision by Labour. This is an appalling, sexist, horrible attempt to hard bake the wrong assumption that men are the perpetrators and women are the victims. I can't express this any more clearly than I have, but today the government's gone too far, and I will do all in my power to bring together those like-minded people who say that abusers have a mindset problem and victims have a problem in their lives, which is only solved when we handle the core traumatic reasons why people abuse in the first place. Not much cheer in there, unless, of course, you're an abused victim who's finally feeling respect. Whether you're male, female, straight or gay, I respect your right to not be abused, and this government should too. I hope that we will be able to make a practical difference to millions of lives over time around the world, and countless thousands in this country, in the United Kingdom. I hear you, and I've seen the pain that abuse causes. It's got to stop.
Immediate ceasefire in Gaza. The return of the sausages.